Is radical Islam to blame for what happened in Paris? One prominent American voice, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, says yes. I'm joined now by Arslan Iftikhar. He's a senior editor of the Islamic Monthly and founder of themuslimguy.com. Appreciate you being here tonight. What is your reaction to what happened, Arslan?
Well, I think, like millions and billions of people around the world, we were shocked and horrified to see what happened today at the offices of Charlie Hebdo in Paris. And it's something that is against any normative teaching of Islam or any religious teaching, and it's a crime against humanity and an act of mass murder.
Do you have a problem with these cartoons, the way they depict the Prophet Muhammad?
No, not at all. And I think that if you, surveyed the vast majority of Muslims around the world, they would certainly say that, the killing of innocent civilians is not only, murder, but it's also against any normative mainstream teachings of Islam. And, their acts are about as Muslim as abortion clinic bombers or gay nightclub bombers. Our acts are Christian.
What you're saying is very close to what CARE is saying. CARE, of course, is America's largest Muslim civil liberties and advocacy organization. And I want to read to you, they put out a statement tonight denouncing the attack in Paris. And they said there is absolutely no justification in Islam for this kind of heinous massacre targeting innocent people. Islam is a religion that promotes tolerance, emphasizes freedom of speech, and encourages the moderate middle path. And then it goes on to talk about that they should be brought to swiftly to justice. Their words and what you're saying, no, that's not always a reality of what many people think about Islam.
Yeah, but, Don, it's important to not conflate, the actions of a very few to, a population of 1.7 billion people, which represents 20% of the world's population. If people want to blame Islam for things, they can blame us for inventing algebra or modern medical anesthesia or having 5 out of the last 12 Nobel Peace Prize winners. And so I think it's important that, to call out the fact that, when Christians commit acts of terror, we don't ask, priests and pastors to go on national television and condemn these acts. But sadly, Muslim public intellectuals, thinkers, leaders, and Islamic scholars, have that double standard that we have to deal with. But it's important for us to get the message out that Muslims are not only as opposed to terrorism, but one of the victims today, actually, the police officer, a 42-year-old man who was gunned down on the sidewalk, was actually a Muslim.
Many times Muslims are the victims of these terrorist attacks. And you're saying that Islam is to blame. Radical Islam is to blame.
Well, I think it's important to keep in mind that, bringing religion into it at all is, actually serving the purposes of the terrorists. I mean, the Prophet Muhammad said that extremists should be considered the dogs of hell and enemies of Islam. I mean, he was attacked and, defamed many times during his life, and there was not one time where he told people to take retribution for that. And so I think it's important to keep in mind that, these are irreligious criminals that are committing acts of mass murder. And, again, to conflate, this to, a civilization that has been around for 1,400 years and, again, has created things like algebra and modern medicine, I think is reductive and simplistic at best.
I have to ask you, because there are a lot of violent extremists use religion to justify their actions. Newsweek found back in August that 16% of French citizens support ISIS. Would you describe those who support ISIS as Islamic extremists?
Well, they obviously, have sympathies for that ideology. I don't think that would mean that they would justify the killing of innocent civilians or murdering people on the streets. Again, there's been no religion in the history of the world, Don, that has been immune from acts of religious terrorism. I mean, we had 9 Crusades, we had the 30 Years' War, we have the Ku Klux Klan in America. A Christianist organization. In Norway a couple of years ago, you remember, Don, Anders Breivik, murdered 77 kids on an island and tried to assassinate the Prime Minister of Norway and left behind a 1,500-page treatise calling himself a soldier of Christianity. Now, we didn't expect every Christian leader around the world to go on national television and condemn him because we knew that he was a lunatic. But sadly, there is a double standard in place when a brown Muslim commits an act of murder. Then,
Point taken, Arslan. I understand where you're going with, but I just want to get a more specific. Again, in August, 16% of French citizens support ISIS. Would you describe those who support ISIS as Islamic extremists? Do you support ISIS?
Wait, did you just ask if I support ISIS? And I just answered your question. I said that obviously these 16% of people support the ideology, but again, I don't think that that would necessarily extrapolate to supporting of killing of innocent people. You can have sympathy for an ideology and not, you know, support the mass murder of people. And that's what the vast majority of the Muslim street, whether you're dealing with Paris or Islamabad or Jakarta, you know, we're as horrified as everybody else about what happened today, and we grieve with the victims and with the people of Paris.
So Frederick Fleiken, our reporter there, said that their people took to the streets, and we saw them in Paris.
Yeah.
He said he didn't see much anti-Muslim or anti-Islam demonstrators there or talk of it. Do you worry about anti-Muslim protests in the days to come?
You know, it's really interesting, Don. You know, in the last few weeks, Germany has seen close to 20,000 people showing up at anti-Muslim rallies around the country. We see the rise of far-right nationalistic, xenophobic political parties like the, you know, Jean-Marie Le Pen's party in France or Geert Wilders in Holland and other neo-Nazi parties. And so, you know, there is far-right, you know, political extremist groups that are, you know, using this as a talking point.
So do you worry about it?
Sure, I do. But I think that it's important to keep in mind that these are, you know, European societies are wonderful, free societies that are welcoming to people of all different backgrounds, and I think that, you know, common sense will ultimately prevail.
Arslan Iftikhar, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Don. Thank you.
We've got much more to come tonight on the manhunt in France for 2 remaining suspects in the terror attack in the heart of Paris. Were there warning signs? Was this a failure of intelligence? We're going to get some answers when we come back.